Surrender is beautiful. These are my first words upon my rebirth on 5-MeO DMT. Breath is precious. Tears running down my cheeks. Can everything change in a moment? A whole decade of university, 2 decades in medicine. No one ever mentioned this. This is it, I thought to myself. This is the medicine I can believe in. This is medicine that works. Because of that day, I am forever in service of this miracle molecule.
She has a doctorate in pharmacy, and she's practiced in a hospital and in the pharmacy industry for 15 years, so she knows her stuff there. She also leads a group called Toad School, which teaches people how to safely lead 5-MeO ceremonies, pretty well known in town as well. So without further ado, I bring you Dr. Trina.
Thank you. I just wanted to, first off, of course, share my gratitude for Anna and Kenny, and also the background of people who created this space and is building this community, because we all have questions, and psychedelics are very unknown, and you can find all the experts on Google, but they really have done work in curating wonderful people to come and speak with you all. So thank you again, Anna and Kenny, for creating this community together. Yeah. And if you met my daughter, she's Araya. She'll be, making sure you guys are all right, checking in with you all every once in a while. So thank you, Araya, for your support in this too. So you heard my bio, my intro. I spent 15 years in pharmacy, and then did my doctorate, worked in hospitals, also worked in industry, then went into my own little private stints. And you're going to hear about my story of how I've just moved into the world of what I call true traditional medicine. And so that's my bio. That's like kind of the face of Trina. But I want you to know like the like true Trina. But wait, first off, let me just one more thing say is I'm grateful to be able to say aloud, yes, I facilitate 5-MeO DMT, and it's an amazing molecule because I was traveling in the US for a few months, and it's Schedule 1 there. So it's been illegal since 2011. And it's just such a disservice to humanity because just a few months ago, GH Industries announced that they used 5-MeO DMT in a trial of treatment-resistant depression. And on day 1, everyone was in remission. Everyone was cured from depression on day 1. And a week later, 7 out of 8 of their subjects were still in remission. So I can't believe something that was labeled as Schedule 1, which according to the US FDA say it's addictive and there are no medicinal health benefits. But yet, what a contradiction that indeed this molecule has this benefit. So this war on drugs, I'm glad it's starting to clear. We've got to clear the stigma. And it's really enraging to me that we have had decades of not the ability to use this medicine. So I'm here today to introduce this molecule to you and hopefully in different ways show how we can, the medicine isn't just the whole powerful for release. There's other ways we can use it as well. And if we don't have the time for that, then catch me at the end for the Q&A. So back to a little bit about me. Um, I've been a huge fan of Captain Planet since I was a kid. So yeah, yeah, Ted Turner fans. Where's my daughter for the applause? Yeah, but yes, speak up. Okay, I'll try to go a little louder, and I'll try not to lose my voice by the end of it. So Captain Planet, yeah. So Captain Planet, he's a hero, gonna take pollution down to zero. Yeah, I am a forever Planeteer because um, yeah, I love our Mother Earth, and will spend all of my energy in trying to keep her and her beautiful biodiversity. So as a child, I was the one running around turning off all the lights and wouldn't flush the toilet. Definitely I'd flush the twos, not the ones. Let's just say that. And that's just been my purpose and mission ever since I was a kid. Just knowing that we aren't here without her. So I've been a little obsessed with, all right, well, how do we save Earth? But actually, it's how do we save the planet? Or sorry, how do we save the humans? Because Earth is always going to be here. She's going to figure out herself. It's just how do we save the humans from destructing ourselves? So I've got a plan, and I don't know if y'all want to guess what one of my tools are on how to save the humans. Anyone? Yeah. I'll, since it's the topic of this conversation, yes, I'm not going to spend, like the next 40 minutes on politics. It's going to be about, yes, you guessed it, 5-MeO DMT. And I'm going to share with you, there's I'm not sure how deep into all the books and the psychonaut literature you get into, but there are some, like, probably the most famous psychonauts, Anne and Alexander Shulgin, now unfortunately the late Anne and Alexander Shulgin, but they were the greatest, to me, the greatest psychonauts. They had a lab, and basically in their lab just added a methoxy group or added a hydroxyl group to whichever molecule. And not only that, but they tried them in incremental doses to find out. Like imagine LSD and you took 1 milligram of that compared to what the usual dose is, like, 100 to 200 micrograms. So they were the courageous ones who tried molecules and wrote about their experiences. And they're also responsible for our modern day MDMA. They brought that back into our into the scene. So Anne and Alexander Shulgin created a scale, +1 to +4 on psychedelics. And it's going to get juicy in a little bit. Let me just explain this. But there's +1, oh, I think I'm feeling something. +2, maybe like a low dose psilocybin journey. Like, yeah, I'm feeling something, but I could still operate, maybe not heavy machinery, but I could still operate like life. +3 is like a high dose LSD. Like, I'm in it. Uh, I'm Alice in Wonderland, and there's no turning back until the clock ticks, clear. +4, and I'm going to have to read it to you because I don't want to miss up their language. +4. It's a rare, and there's a plane going off, but I'll try to. Can everyone hear me with the plane going? No? Okay. +4. A rare and precious transcendental state, which has been called a peak experience, a religious experience, divine transformation, a state of samadhi, and many other names in other religions. It's not connected to the +1, 2, or 3 of measuring a drug's intensity. It's the state of bliss, a participation mystique, a connectedness with both the interior and exterior universes. Whoa, it's getting deep here. Which has come about after the ingestion of a psychedelic drug, but which is not necessarily repeatable with the subsequent ingestion of that same drug. So, if a drug or technique or process were ever to be discovered, which would consistently produce a +4 experience in all human beings, it is conceivable, and I'm going to just underline and bold this part, conceivable that it would signal the ultimate evolution and perhaps the end of the human experiment. That's coming from the Shulgins. So, any geniuses in the crowd who want to guess what is the one molecule that they named? One out of the entire book of Fikal and Tikal that they went through and experienced. What's the one molecule where they said is a plus, can give you a +4 experience? Genius! Yay! Yeah, it's why I choose to work with this medicine. It's pretty powerful. And so why is it that 5-MeO creates that and not high dose LSD? I mean, high dose LSD can, but 4-MeO is pretty predictable. So you hear in many studies, if you go read up the John Hopkins studies, there's this term they call occasioning a mystical experience. And that is correlated with when you hear about, wow, they changed their lives, their life satisfaction went up, they no longer are afraid of death, everything's changed for them. It's when they experience that, their occasioned mystical experience. And I like to call that also ego dissolution. Ego dissolution. So 5-MeO DMT has the highest propensity of allowing that ego dissolution. And I'm going to throw out a nod to Dr. Thomas Ray. I'm a big fan of him. He's on like the edge of psychedelic science. And he's done all of the studies of like what's happening in the brain and the neurons. And he's identified that his belief is that it's about 5-HT7, which is a different serotonin molecule. So we keep hearing about 5-HT2A, and that's the psychedelic key. But why is it that all of them touch on 5-HT2A, but they all feel different? So there's actually a bouquet of different neurotransmitters and receptor subtypes that all these psychedelics are working on. And he proposes that if you have a high amount of 7 being activated, but a very low amount of 2, that's what's going to create the ego dissolution. And that's where 5-MeO DMT has that perfect balance there. So that's part of the equation of why is it a 4+. But there's so much more to that too.
I mean, between the 7 and the 2, whatever mix of stuff is going on there, that 5-MeO DMT is creating that particular situation.
Yeah, imagine like you're pressing really loudly on the 7, and you're adding the amplitude to the 7, and then you're just kind of like pressing really quietly on the 2A. That's his combination where he says will create ego dissolution. And another nod to him is I met him, and he I guess I'd like to proclaim I think it's the end of the war on drugs, because we can make cinnamon psychedelic. He's a mad scientist. We could talk about this again, but yeah, if you got cinnamon in your closet, we can figure out how to make that psychedelic.
And his name is Dr. Ray?
Dr. Thomas Ray.
Thomas Ray.
So let's talk about the molecule itself, because we've got a large audience, and I don't know what your level of knowledge is. So 5-MeO DMT, it's DMT, yes. There are many DMTs. There's ayahuasca is NN-DMT with an MAOI inhibitor. Psilocin is DMT for HO-DMT, so it's a tryptamine. But this molecule is different. So when you say DMT, make sure you're like, oh, you can sound smart now. You're like, oh, is that NN-DMT or 4-HO-DMT? Now you know. And this is 5-MeO DMT. Some people call it the toad. Some people call it 5-methoxy. I call it the 5. Take 5. And it comes from, there are actually a few sources. It's actually been found in some ancient shamanic pouches where they do the assays and they figure out, oh, there's actually 5-MeO DMT in here. It's the main ingredient in yopo, which is also another practice. But what's been made famous by Mike Tyson and Joe Rogan is the source that comes from the Colorado Sonoran Desert toad, or Bufo, the source is Bufo. And that is, it's really curious that most of our psychedelics come from plants. This one comes from an animal. And so this toad lives underneath the ground in the Sonoran Desert for about 8 to 10 months out of the year. My belief is meditating, right? Collecting all this DMT. And then she comes up when the conditions are right to procreate and like gorge. And that's when someone found out, like, hey, I wonder what happens if I catch her, secrete push on the secretions, dry it, and take a pipe and smoke it. But we're very thankful that we've discovered there is a method of ingesting it safely. If you were to lick it, it's cardiotoxic. So only smoking it, because you need to combust it, it's safe. So it comes from a Sonoran Desert toad. It's a very simple molecule, looks just like serotonin. If I had a whiteboard, I would draw out the molecules for you. No, I'm not that much of a, not into that much, but it's a very simple molecule. And as I mentioned, it touches on 5-HT7, 2A, and 1A. Those are the main receptors that it works on. And what does a journey look like? So I'm really thankful that my first experience was facilitated. I actually had a source on me. So I could have just went and like found the experts on Google and asked, well, what dose do I go to break through, right? But I would have had possibly a Michael Pollan experience. And I'm not sure how many of you read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, but he then described that it was very intense, and unfortunately it's the one molecule he wouldn't try again. But it's all about set and setting, as you all know, and it's all about how are you guided into it. So my facilitators gently guided me into the most profound experience that I've ever had, and then just tossed me into the deep end, which is what he had. That's set and setting. So how they introduced it to me, and this is how I choose to facilitate, and hundreds of facilitations later, it's still the method that's tried and true for me, with, of course, a little bit of intuition. Maybe sometimes I add a little bit more of this, or I do another one of these, but I'll go and explain the regimen that I use. And that's the handshake, the hug, and what I call the holy rebirth. So the handshake is just a tiny little dose. And by the way, this is all done in one day, and it's usually smoked. Sometimes you can insufflate it, in other terms, snort it. Some drug companies are actually trying to use it IM, IV. You can even boof the bufo, if you know what boofing is. I won't explain it here, but you can look it up. You can Google it. Don't blame me for the first images that come up. Oh. You're an expert there. I have to go talk to you. And so in the ceremony, it can be done one-on-one, which is the way I prefer it. It's a place where you can be held in loving, conscious presence. But you can also do it in groups, which is also very healing, right? Group healing is very powerful. So it's smoked, and the onset for all of them is every dose is 10 seconds. Like within 10 seconds, you're feeling it. But the duration is different for each dose. So the handshake was the first one that I mentioned. It lasts for about 1 to 2 minutes, and it's very light. It's actually quite blissful. And as a side note, it's something that I'm working on a microdosing regimen with that, because if you only do the microdose, you can still feel the effects even days later, and it feels like just things are smoothed out. You've got clarity. Things don't anger you as much anymore. It just kind of feels like you've been meditating for that day. So that's the handshake, and it's just a nice intro, because how nice is it to, when you're encountering the most intense and profound psychedelic on the planet, that your first encounter is this like wonderful, that was nice, right? Which then readies you for the next dose, which is the hug. And it could be a firm hug. for quite a few people. It's my favorite dose. People ask me, why don't you just skip to the last one? But if I'm gonna spend a few hours with someone, we're gonna go and uncover what we can uncover. And so if you notice, this is like a stepwise approach, and there's talking and there's discussions in the middle between all of them. So this middle dose, it's a firm hug, and I call it palpating the contours of your ego, because things are gonna come up. My first experience, I felt like, like those powerful waves at the beach. I felt like something was coming in and pushing me, and I felt uncomfortable. And my guide said, just go with it. Like, what's pushing? Just allow, accept. So when I offer the hug to people, they find a way to tell me, I don't think I want to go next. I don't think I want to keep going. It's a little uncomfortable. Was I breathing? Um, like, I don't know. Maybe I they'll find whatever excuse to try to not move forward. That's not everyone, but it's like, hey, what's coming up for you? What are you? What's the fear? And it's a great opportunity to go and discuss, why, what is the nervous system doing, and translating that into the mouth, and let's see if we can calm that down and move into a state of, I am safe, I trust, yes, I'm willing to move on and surrender. So that's why that hug is my favorite. And then after perhaps some exercises, some breath work, some touch, some body work, Reiki, or just conversation, whenever the participant's ready, then we move on to the last dose. And it's, once again, comes on within 10 seconds. And this one lasts for anywhere between, for some people, it's fast, 10 minutes. And for some people, they continue to stay in it, usually up to 30 minutes, but even a little bit longer if they're sensitive and they want to continue to meditate through and feel it. But that experience is because you've already felt the struggle. You've already struggled with it. So, of course, when you're being shot up into the stars, it's going to be slightly rocky, but you're like, okay, I'm safe in my little shuttle here. It's all right. So the struggle is easier, and so the surrender comes easier, right? So the holy rebirth is how I call it. It's as the Shogans explain it, and in my words, because I follow Vipassana meditations, and the Buddha calls it the abode of voidness. You go into a space of complete non-duality. Just seems not sexy enough for a term. It's just like, it's everything, it's nothing, it's truth, absolute, samadhi consciousness. How many of you here have had an experience with five? Nice, so a good proportion of you. Well, thanks for coming to the talk then. And so a few of you know, and maybe you all can share your experiences, but it's incredible. And for best results, because it's a lot of preparation. I believe that it's good to have grounding practice before you move into this medicine, because it can be intense, and so there's some practice that you have to calm that nervous system. It'll be a much more easier way to surrender. It's important to have community or friends to integrate with. So, like, it's a lifelong integration. So it's important, if you think you're a good candidate, it's like, all right, well, make sure you have friends to integrate with. And also make sure that you don't have any medical contraindications or pharmaceutical contraindications, because there are some things that can block the effects of the medicine. And side effects. In my facilitation, I always do my due diligence, and I share, well, what can happen. Side effects may include, a taste of enlightenment and decreased anxiety, depression, and increase life satisfaction. But there's some really interesting things also about the five that I've noticed that I do make sure I share with everyone before they go on a journey, because they need to know this, is there's a chance of what we call reactivations. So in about 10% or even less of people, there's a peculiar effect where sometimes without any medicine, and you're sitting in meditation or in a relaxed state, you can go back into the experience. And it's important to prepare people for that, because it's like, what's happening? So letting them know, don't worry, it's usually when you're in a relaxed state, and if you don't fight it, don't resist it, it'll nicely smooth out, and just enjoy the free ride. That's what I say. There's another really cool side effect, which is I've been having vivid dreams ever since, and it's been years since my first experience. And that's a just what many people will report afterwards is, yeah, my dreams are much more vivid. And lastly, like I call it, you create a new anchor impression. So now if you have a psilocybin journey, or if you have even a cannabis journey, it takes on a bit of the flavor of the five, because you know where to go. You like with the five, it's like I've been there, and now with the taste of other medicines, it's gonna lead you there, and then you just let that happen, and then now you're in a new kind of five experience, and it's pretty. I mean, I'm grateful for it. It's amazing. Yes.
Just to help me understand what you just said there, if you've had a five experience,
Mm-hmm.
and then you explore, say, psilocybin or other medicines,
Mm-hmm.
am I hearing you right when you say that it'll enhance the psilocybin experience?
I believe so, and that's my own personal experience. Is it it adds another possibility for the psilocybin experience. It's just it blooms all psychedelics to me. If even cannabis. So yeah, when you're sitting in a cannabis meditation, I can it's like, oh, I feel like I'm going into a five experience, and then just open up to that and let that bloom, and it feels like a five experience. Yeah. So there's a range of possibilities. Feel like I'm a five salesperson, but it's been such a life-changing experience for me that yeah, I want to share how it's changed other people's lives that I've facilitated for. So one of my poster children is and names have been changed for anonymity. I'm gonna pull a name out of a hat right now, and we'll call him Tim. So Tim was kind of just living a regular life, but just he was struggling with weight for his entire adulthood. His like marriage was going into divorce. He was just unhealthy and unhappy. And after receiving the first full release dose, like I still checked in on him, and he tells me he has changed his diet drastically, which means to him he barely eats any more meat, which maybe that's how we save the planet, at least one way. Him and his wife now talk about spirituality and read books together. He meditates and does yoga daily. So, and that's over 3 years later, and he's still the effects are still long lasting. There's another case, we'll call her Lori, and she's actually a five facilitator, and she was diagnosed with cancer, and we did the medicine together, and she woke up and she said, Trina, I was, I know what death feels like. I was ready to embrace it, but I now want to live, because now I know that there's so much to live for. I love my life. I love the people. I want to be here. So that was extremely powerful for her. And another case, which is, we'll call him, give me a name. Frank. Thanks. So Frank has been a transcendental meditator for over 30 years. He actually teaches transcendental meditation. He's been doing transcendental meditation since he was 4, and his parents are transcendental meditate teachers. And when he took his first full release dose, he jumped up and screamed, "This is samadhi consciousness." Oh my God. 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 Like just jumping up and down because in all of his decades of meditating, he had never had the experiential knowledge of samadhi consciousness until trying this medicine. So I've got many more stories, but then we should go into my story, which is, so y'all heard, yes, I've been a pharmacist and, kind of was treading both lives. I was doing pharmacy and kind of doing medicine work on the side a bit. And after my first full release dose, it was like, oh, I know what I'm here for. And it melted away all the fears. And it gave me the courage to step into, how do I offer my gifts to others? And I've got to just keep doing that, because if I have a mission in life, it's to offer my gifts to others. So my pharmacy knowledge, I now offer uh, contraindications with pharmaceuticals. I do consultations for, and I was just sharing the 5 from that moment on, just activated to just share this medicine that was so powerful. So I left my comfortable, very prestigious role and went underground. And it changed my life, I have to say. So that's definitely the tool of how I think we're going to save the humans. But there's another element to it, because, we've, that's like step 1. If you watch South Park and the Underwear Gnomes, it's like, step 1, 5-MeO-DMT, and step 3, save the humans. But what's the question mark part? What's step 2? And I think we have to look to those who already have done the path and worked on an actualized, uh, harmonious community. And so I'm going to give you, in part, another piece of wisdom that I've learned. And this has been so resonant to me that I share it wherever I can. And I'm just obsessed about it. I think about, like, okay, it's part of my structure framework of how I do all my actions now. So it goes like this. You all know Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Bottom, like shelter, and then top is self-actualization. That's his pyramid. Well, did you know that? Does anyone know the source of where he got that from? Hmm?
The chakra system?
Oh, but that's an interesting,
The root chakra, like shelter,
yeah.
money, and then the hot, and then the self-actualization is the crown chakra. So
That actually, it fits.
it actually totally fits.
Well, a little history lesson is Maslow actually spent 6 weeks with the Blackfeet Nation, and that's, pardon?
Blackfoot, what?
The Blackfeet,
Blackfeet.
Blackfeet Nation.
Blackfoot? I think it's Blackfoot.
Well, their site is actually called Blackfeet Nation, but then they're also referred to as Blackfoot. So, in translation, feet, foot, I'll refer to them how their site is. It's the Blackfoot tribe or Blackfeet tribe, but we don't. Either way is fine. Maybe we should ask them though. But he spent 6 weeks there, and he lived among them, and he noticed that 80 to 90% of the people there had high esteem, which then is later to be translated into they were actualized. And he went back and reflected on his community and thought, I only think 5 to maybe 10% are actualized. So think about 9 out of 10 versus 1 out of 20. That's a big difference. So we have a lot to learn from this nation. And so if you remember the Maslow's hierarchy, the bottom, needs, and then security, and then love, and then self-actualization. It's a very individualistic pyramid if you think about it. It's just about self. The secret and what makes the Blackfeet how like what helped them and have them become the actualized community that they were. And unfortunately, it's changed a bit, but at that time, they definitely were. They the bottom is actually self-actualization. So guess what, guys? You're already divine. You're already enlightened. Congratulations. Work's done, right? Because if the work's done, you're already at the top. Right? According to Maslow, you're done. But that's just the start to the Blackfeet Nation. The next step is community actualization. And it makes sense to me, right? Ram Dass says, if you think you're enlightened, go home for Thanksgiving. Because the traumas will keep coming. And that's whether that's through societal or intergenerational, they'll just keep coming. And so it's important that the community then is actualized. And what does that look like? Well, to them, in their words, it's you need a horse, you need a teepee, you need a blanket, we got you. Because we need to make sure your needs are met. Because you're born here with a special divinity, a gift. And your gift should be offered to the world. So we support you so that you can offer your gifts to others. An actualized community is where you're taken care of, where your gifts, you are supported in offering your gifts. Imagine that. And so the last step is cultural perpetuity. And that's wordy to me. And it's a little confusing of a concept, but it really means, in simple terms, it's you're the product of 7 generations before, and your actions and considerations should be about 7 generations in the future. And if our politicians were to act in cultural perpetuity, we would already have saved the humans and everything else, if you think about it. So that's really informed all of my decision making and all of my actions. So yes, the 5 helped me realize my divinity, and it gave me the courage to now offer my gifts to everyone. And the cultural perpetuity part is I started Toad School because I want to share this with as many people who want to experience this as possible, because this medicine is medicine, as I mentioned before, with healing treatment resistant depression. And I offer all of my services on the Dana model, which is donation. Donation. It's that, which means everyone has access, right? You need a horse, you need a blanket, you have access. I will share that access with you with no barriers. And it's also informed me on decentralizing, about spreading the knowledge and power and agency to the ultimate fringes, because it's not about a priesthood, it's not about someone holding the power, it's about all of us holding the ability to share this and having our internal power ourselves. So that's decentralization, and Toad School is an example of decentralization, because if you come to Toad School, you'll notice, oh, I have everything I need to host my own Toad School. And I'm always thinking about diversity, because one person that I may not know has answers that might be the other answer to how do we save the humans. So it's about going out and reaching out to multiple communities. So that's what I also try to do with Toad School, is find people who I wouldn't otherwise connect with and see how we can share this medicine with everyone. Everyone's invited. So this is my step forward into my lifelong childhood wish of how do we save the humans. And so if you'd like to join me, come chat with me. Come see what a Toad School's like. If you want to know if the medicine is right for you, we can do a chat, and I also do medicine consults. And maybe come chat with me about what your plan is on how you hope to save the humans, and I'll be your #1 cheerleader. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. And I think, let's say a lot of people who have the experience, they say, whoa, I can't imagine ever doing that again. I'm good. I'm like, I got the message and I'm hanging up the phone. But there's sometimes life just kind of throws things at you, and sometimes you kind of forget the way. And so I do notice that those who are like, I'm good, a few years later they'll say, yeah, I feel like I need a little bit of a refresher. I kind of forgot. And so it depends on the individual and their practice. Like if you are going back and doing thoughtful integration, like there was a lady who did psilocybin, and every Thanksgiving she listens to the soundtrack and then uses that as another meditative way of going back, and she still stays in that like she still says like she can experience that profoundness. So I think it's up to the individual, and I mean it's I visited a few times, but I also try every new batch that I receive too. So if it were me, I think I would probably visit it maybe every few years. But I think it is up to the individual. It isn't one of those like, oh, every few seasonal thing. It's just kind of when you're starting to feel as if you're like, I think it's time. I think people know when it's time. Yeah. It's completely different. It's um, the mechanical elves and the like cool colors and all of that. Like that's ayahuasca or an NDMT. And a lot of times you're stuck in the waiting room if you're just seeing the colors and haven't broken through. So that's called the waiting room. But five is, I'd say it's interesting. Those who are very visually inclined, they see visuals. But for many people, most people, it might be a little bit of like, I see a little bit of, the flower of life and white and black, like some patterns, but it's just the feeling. It's kind of like there's this sutra, like there is no eyes to see, there's no ear to hear, there's no skin to touch, there's no tongue to taste, there's no nose to smell. You're you're your observer self. You're everything. You're everything, and the senses are all gone, and you just are observing. That's what it feels like. So it's fully just the experience. It's very, in a way, just feeling it instead of the senses being distracted by things. Like there's this gentleman named Ronald Metzner. He writes The Jaguar and the Toad, and he's been through, I think, thousands of experiences, or like he's witnessed this thousands of experiences, and he's used to put both. He used to put NN-DMT and 5-MeO together and smoke it, but he just realized there's no difference. The 5 just takes over, and so there was no use, and you're just wasting NN. So it's just you're just beyond senses with 5.
Sounds like you're describing the heart sutra and you're describing a samadhi in enlightenment experience, which can't be put into words.
It cannot be. It's right. Truly ineffable.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Thanks.
I like that. Wow. There are many groups out there that are working on it. So it's about, hey, it's available now in Canada. Let's offer this to people who are going through, whether they're curious about consciousness or whether they're going through depression. It's available now. And then I think there are many groups. I know before when I was with MAPS, they were talking with many of the health authorities about bringing in psilocybin. And I would love for this 5-MeO to be the end of life medicine. I think that would be the ultimate. I offered it to a girl who wanted to become a death doula, and she said, this is the medicine that we actually need to be offering in this stage. So I think it has absolute applications in all realms, hospital and just day to day. Just as an upkeep, it's been shown to have neurogenesis and neuroplasticity properties. So as anecdotal case, I know someone who's offered this to their father who has dementia and Alzheimer's, and he was taking it. I can't remember what period of time, but after taking both doses of he took psilocybin and 5-MeO DMT, and he no longer has the diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
What?
I know. So he's looking to try to start research on that. I'm like, how can I help? It's broken down by CYP2D6, which is a liver enzyme. So if you're on any medications that block that, and actually even so a lot of a few SSRIs do block that, so then you're going to have an increased amount of it in your system. And you should also avoid MAOIs with it as well, because it blocks the pathway, and you're going to just it's just like too much all the time, and it's not clearing either. So there are some contraindications with it for sure, and so that's why it's important. Everyone who comes to Toad School learns about the contraindications, and I have something on my site that is a little paper on how to review contraindications for all psychedelics. The Dharmacist.com. So instead of the pharmacist, it's the Dharmacist. Yeah. Thank you. Everyone after a 5-MeO experience, interestingly, like you can basically drive the same day, but of course you want to just make sure that you're in your nervous system has calmed down. But people feel very activated and they feel great afterwards. It's like, once again, feels like you've meditated for hours. You've just had like a soul spa day. So I haven't heard any come down effects from it. Yeah, from at least anyone I've asked, or no one's brought it up. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We do got to wrap up. Trina, thanks so much for your time.
I'm planning on hosting a weekly microdosing session with sound healing. So, of course, by donation. So if you're interested in that, put your name down and I'll send out an email and tell you when and where. It's actually next week.
That's
Good.
perfect timing then.
It is perfect timing.
If I don't get my name in there, can I just go to the Toad School and post my name?
Yeah, it's toad.school is the site too, and you can sign up there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we still got spots.
How often do you do the Toad
Oh, amazing. So informative. I was actually at Toad School 4.0.
I remember,
and this was just a refresher, so it was really nice to see you guys again.
Definitely. No, good answer. It was great.
Really informative.
Yeah.
I think
I mean, I've been to Toad School, so I knew a lot of it.
My approach to healing myself, healing all my complex PTSD, is approaching from top down, just self-actualization first. And so I think 5-MeO resonates with my healing path most. And yeah, she just echoes back what I already want to do. I want to do a hug dose mid-November. And I want to go to the next Toad School too.
Yeah, definitely.
What I resonated most is just what her vision is, her purpose. And for me, I've always had a dream. Well, my dream now is uniting the world. It's been like that for a while.
Inspiring. Yeah.
Cool.
Very informative. Very nice. Great speaker.
Loved it. Trina's a great speaker. Love her energy, love her enthusiasm. And I like she touched on all the points. Touched on all the meaningful points and answered all the questions quite well. So, good job.
A real level of trying to connect with ultimately what and who am I about. That's what listening to Trina is opening that up and trying to say, okay, how can I unwrap all of this and figure it all out?
What do you
It's
think?
the save humanity with the
Yeah.
the community. What was it? The actualization of the community and all that. That was an interesting part of it too.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Good new perspective for me.
I feel great hope for the future in maybe more different ways, and I feel I feel I always like have suspicion when I come to like people's talks, and like and now now that I've met Trina, I can see that she's like a very solid and humble and beautiful person, and very aligned with her heart, and I feel like I can really trust her, and I'm just really excited to actually work with this medicine.
Bye.